everyone, and welcome to Exploiting the Explicit, episode 10.
Ding, 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 ding,
Woohoo!
ding.
Double digits. We have finally arrived, and we made double digits in our subscribers as well. So, thank you all for tuning in, where we learn from life and grow with each other as we exploit the obvious. I'm your host, Abigail Hathaway, and
And I'm your co host, Corey Diamond.
all right, Corey, how about you will us some power into the topic
Very
for this?
good. So, yeah, something that has been on my mind lately is how do we get ourselves to do the things that are hard for us to do? Where does willpower come from? How do we like channel the strength to keep going even when it feels like we don't have the reserve? And I've been reading a really good book on willpower lately, and it's fascinating to see how the mind works and how a lot of times we like the majority of things that we do is autopilot. So a lot
Yeah.
of the things that we want to shift in our lives, um, we can't do because we're ingrained into this pattern, this habit of doing things a certain way. And even though it's something we know we need to do or want to do, it's hard to do it because the pattern hasn't been broken yet. And
Yeah.
so one of the things like, you know, there's a lot of things that the book talks about. Maybe we can get into some solutions to those challenges in willpower lately, but I feel like that's a good way to like kind of start the topic in willpower and like just explore that a bit. And so, like for me, I would say one area that I've consistently had some willpower challenges with
Hmm.
is just going to bed at a decent time. It's
Yeah.
like I know good and well that I need to go to sleep by a certain time if I'm going to be rested. But when the time comes to go to sleep, it's like, let's just see what else is going on. And next thing I know, an hour will be going past, and I'll be like, what? Why did I spend that long just watching random TikToks or YouTube?
Right. Where
And
then in hindsight, you see the value of that hour of sleep actually weighed more than the value that you received in the hour you wasted.
right,
Hmm.
exactly. And so, what causes that? How do we end up knowing there's something that we're supposed to do, but yet we do the opposite? And so, the book I've been reading has some really good insights into that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the topic?
I think that willpower has a different source of power behind it for each one of us. I think that if we took the time, we could discern the difference between willpower, motivation, discipline, inspiration, and that each of those kind of tie into a different portion of our character, of our individual. And it's like if we break down the term itself, willpower, what powers our will? What is our will? I like to think that it's linked to our soul. So, what is that soul source, of power that activates the will, the willing to do something, or the willingness to do something? Um, but one thing you said to me earlier before we began recording this show is that because I felt like willpower. I don't feel like I have willpower right now. I'm so exhausted. And then you mentioned to me that, but look at you did it anyway. You got through it. And I was like, So I didn't realize the level of willpower I have when my lens wasn't programmed to see it. So I think that talking about what willpower is and what it can do for us, what it looks like for us, might be helpful because you opened my eyes and seeing that although I don't feel like I have willpower, I do because I'm doing the things that I don't want to do anyway.
Yeah, and that's really I would say the key element, and I think that you know, kind of one of the things that you mentioned was like motivation, inspiration, discipline, all those different areas that are connected to willpower. Like we all have the power to do the thing that we want to do the same way that we have the power not to do the thing that we want to do. And it takes the same amount of effort to not do something as it does to do it. But one of the differences is we are like ingrained in a pattern of putting our energy towards not doing something than we are putting our
Yeah.
energy towards doing the thing that we know we need to do.
I think that ties into what our baseline programming is.
Yeah,
Like, are we at the core of it? If you remove all the layers, what is that main programming that you have?
yeah. And so it's like, you know, how do we find out what that programming is? How do we explore these deeper areas? Like, where do they come from? Like, do we get these patterns in childhood? Is these things that we've been exposed to? Sometimes it's trauma,
Yeah.
that causes a fear response in relation to change. It's
Mhm.
like when if someone has had negative experiences associated with change, then there can be this like I don't know, blockage, so to speak, when the mind is trying to like process change because there was
Yeah.
some traumatic event or experience in relation to change to where like the mind just wants everything to be predictable. The mind doesn't want any surprises because
Yeah.
there was some type of traumatic event associated with not knowing.
Mhm. Well, also too, if you look at change, change is the death and birth of something new. So it's the death of something old and the birth of something new. So there's a mourning process to it. So
Mhm.
it's kind of linked to what would your response be or what is your response when you lose someone or someone dies? I know that
Mhm.
might be extreme, but
Yeah, yeah.
just the loss of a pet, the loss of a job, the loss of a car, it's a loss, it's a mourning, it's
Mhm.
something you once had you no longer do. So it makes sense why there is that psychological component of change and why change can create like a resistance or a fear to act. So
Yeah.
even if you have the power and the will for it, if you don't act on it,
Yeah.
it's like, what are you really feeding
And I just
or
had a
fueling?
really like deep
Yeah.
insight, but it's
Mhm.
like how you mentioned change and like that being like a death. In a way, it's like everything has a cycle to it, a
Yeah.
death and rebirth.
Mhm.
And it's interesting just how that kind of like the light bulb just came on, right? And so like every day is a new rebirth.
Yeah.
When we go to sleep, it's kind of like a death.
Mhm.
And then we wake up, and what do we call the daytime? The morning, right?
Right.
Because
Wow. Yeah. The
you just
morning.
you
Yeah.
just are like experiencing a new day.
Yeah.
The last day is done, is
Right.
died. Now you have a new day. So you mourn the fact that that day is gone, but there's good that comes from the
Mhm.
morning, right?
Mhm.
Because you got the sunshine, you have a new opportunity to experience life
Mhm.
and kind of write your own experience for
Mhm.
how you want the day to go.
Yeah.
And so it's like if we are living in the past and allowing the past to keep us from moving forward, that's when I think that the grieving of the day before can impede our ability to progress. It can
Yeah.
impede our ability to create something new.
Yeah. Because you're hung up on what is gone, on what should be mourned is the past. You're it's like if you lose someone close to you and you can't exist anymore moving forward because you're not processing the mourning of what you lost. Like the next morning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're not processing what has passed. Literally what has passed. Someone passed away, so now you mourn.
And they
Mhm.
pass on from
Yeah.
this existence to the next existence.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're gone
Mhm.
permanently, but they are experiencing a different morning. They
Right.
went to sleep from this dimension and woke
Mhm.
up in the next dimension,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
like we can't process it on this side of heaven and existence of like what that experience is. But you see the patterns in literally everything. There's this death and rebirth cycle,
Yes.
whether it's relationships,
Mhm.
whether it's a job.
Mhm.
Like we just so happy. Like let's say you get a new job, right? You're so happy you got a new job. It's like, wow, yeah, this is the start of this wonderful relationship. And then after a certain point, it just sometimes people feel like, oh, this isn't working, and they have to find a new job or they get fired or something, and there's a death,
Yeah.
and then it's like there's a mourning
Right.
period
Right.
after that, but then there's a happiness once the new job is found. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's kind of like learning to face face the newness with a positive, grateful mindset.
Mhm.
I think is our challenge as human beings, and I think that's kind of just circling back to willpower, how you are able to like push through when things when you have that um feeling of fear or that feeling of hesitation
Yeah.
is like you have to like conceptualize the joy that you will experience on the other side
Yeah.
of whatever is
Mhm.
whatever that like um that's trying to prevent you
Mhm.
from doing it. You have to like get into your mind like, but what is it that I'm trying to experience? Like
Yeah.
I know this feels scary. This is like a change, but it's like you got to put yourself into that state of what that'll feel like when
Mhm.
you get there,
Yeah.
when you receive it. So that way your brain can recognize that like the payoff is so much more valuable than feeling how I'm currently feeling,
Yeah.
you know?
That kind of reminds me of a concept I used to say when I was a personal trainer to my clients. I used to tell them hallucinate yourself into a new existence, like hallucinate your future reality of what it is that you want to achieve.
Mhm.
Like hallucinate, until it then becomes it. Because once you believe it, then you can like see it, like concepts that we talked about before.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of have to, yeah, reprogram yourself in a way that you believe what it is you're seeing is already what it is you want it to be, if that makes sense. And another thing that came to me as well is like having that perspective of like a rebirth each day when you wake up, like it being our
Mhm.
birthday, kind of
Mhm.
reminds me like a newborn baby. Like
Mhm.
how everyone is just so excited when there's a new birth,
Yes.
right? So look at every day when you wake up as
As a
your
new birth. Yes.
birthday and then be just as excited as if you are legit reborn.
Yes.
And it actually kind of, this is kind of like a side tangent, but it's on in line with this. But this gal and I, years ago, we used to go around. Her and I would wear birthday hats or like birthday crowns,
Uh-huh.
and it'd be happy birthday, and we would go around and just walk into random businesses and stores,
Uh-huh.
and people would just be like happy birthday, and we'd be like thank you, and then they'd be like, oh, and we'd get on the topic and we'd be like, actually, because they're like, you both have the same birthday, and we're like, well, we wear these because we're reborn every day. Every day is our birthday. So, and then we would explain our philosophy behind this concept, and it
Yeah.
actually would, like spark people into
Yeah,
seeing it
yeah.
differently. Some people thought we were crazy,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
then there was some people that really were enlightened by
Yeah,
that
yeah. No.
understanding.
Yeah. No, I like that. And it definitely ties into the topic. And actually as we were talking, like a scripture came to mind.
Mhm.
It's a scripture that in Psalms. It says like weeping may endure for the night, but joy comes in the morning.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times the way the programming in the matrix in this world works is it teaches us to fear the morning, but the morning is actually where our joy comes from.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's kind of like we get programmed to fear challenge, fear death, fear the night
Yeah.
because we don't want to experience the weeping. But
Yeah.
there's joy on the other side of
Right.
that weeping. There's
Mhm.
joy on the other side of that challenge. There's joy on the other side of that obstacle. Like when you have to just grit your teeth to
Yeah.
get through the
Right.
day. It's like when you're able to just recognize that the morning is coming, like, and you can just kind of let that experience die out. It's like how you were saying about the birth of a new baby, right? One of the
Mhm.
common like things that I've heard about childbirth is like after the baby's born, that whole labor experience, that whole struggle is forgotten by the mom
Yeah.
when they see the baby's face, right?
Mhm.
And so that's kind of I think one of those things that as we are dealing with the challenges in life and dealing with the resistance to change, it's like not necessarily beating ourselves up for experiencing the
Mhm.
challenge because it's hard. Like birth is hard, obviously that's an understatement, but life is hard.
Yeah.
And like it's not gonna always be easy to use that willpower to get to the next stage because you're experiencing a death of sorts
Yeah.
in order to accomplish the thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Mhm.
And so obviously it's not
Mhm.
always going to be rainbow and
Mhm.
sunshine on the other side of whatever it is you're trying to get to like while you're going through getting to the other side of what you're trying to get to because a part of you is dying off and
Right.
a new part of you is being born
Yeah.
as you are essentially like
Yeah.
evolving into this
Yeah, and I got
new
chills with the
version.
thought of pain. Labor is pain, and when you work throughout the day, you're putting in labor,
Mhm.
for then the death and then the rebirth for more labor pains. Then you're
Mhm.
being reborn each day.
Mhm.
And then even after said labor, you must rest,
Mhm.
which in church service talks about the Sabbath and how
Mhm.
that's actually required. So we can't just overwork ourselves.
Mhm.
Underwork and overwork are two of the same coins. You can
Mhm.
have too much and too little of each.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
but it's just like listening, exploiting the obvious of what these concepts are, like what they say is the key to their application in our life.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And like just being conscious of the patterns that we get kind of sucked into as people and the programming that we're experiencing. It's just kind of like sometimes you just need something or someone to just shake you out of the struggle and focusing on the struggle and just being able to recognize like wait, the life I'm living today is so much better than the life I was living 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Like even though I have hard times now, like I'm actually getting better as a person even if it's not necessarily where you want to be. Life is getting better as long as you've been following God, and been like on the path that you're supposed to be on. It's better, and I think it's like we don't take enough account of like the blessings that we have in life. And let's say someone like not experiencing a better life, right? That's also important to be mindful of
Yeah.
because like okay, so it's been 10 years, and you still in the same spot that you were in 10 years
Yeah.
ago. You gonna blame other people for that? You gonna blame the world for that? You gonna blame God for that? Or are you gonna take accountability
Hmm.
and think about what have I been doing different for
Right.
10 years? Or have each day, each morning, I just continue to hold on to the past
Hmm.
and continue to try to recreate the same experience over and over.
Yeah, because we're systems and we have input and output. It's the
Yeah.
same concept as they say, like you are what you eat. Like you can't input like sugar every day for your whole life and expect to then be healthy as if you ate like kale and broccoli,
Mhm.
your whole life instead.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. You become what the habits are that you are initiating.
Yeah.
And sometimes um cuz the thing that's coming to mind is like how I've heard maybe you told me about this, like an airplane, if
Mm-hmm.
it just shifts the direction just a tiny percentage, it can end up in a totally
Yep.
different city.
Yep.
And so I
Like the
realized, like,
smallest degree on a compass
yeah,
over a longer distance can take you completely off your mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I think that, like, when it comes to like the willpower challenge, sometimes we overestimate how much effort is required to
Yeah.
see a change
Yeah.
and have a difference in our lives.
Mhm.
And really, all it sometimes takes is a small shift in the direction that you want to go, a
Yeah.
small action that can help you end up someplace totally different.
Right.
But I think sometimes we get so worried about, like, wow, I'm in California right now and I need to get to New York. That's so far. And it's just
Right.
like, well, what's one small thing you can do to get
Mhm.
to your destination? You
Right.
know?
You just begin in the direction, whereas
Ye
like you're not gonna see signs for New York in California. You're
no.
gonna. It's like the closer you get to your destination, the more signs you see. It's actually a theory, and
Uh-huh.
you can't expect, okay, I'm off. You might even think you're off course because
Mhm.
you've traveled for days and you still haven't seen a sign from New
Right.
York
Right,
yet,
right.
but you're actually completely aligned.
Yeah.
But then you become impulsive and then you change your trajectory and momentum,
Exactly.
which is a physics equation. What is the definition of impulse and momentum? Okay. So an impulse is a temporary shift in your momentum. Well, if you're building momentum towards an aim to a bullseye, then
Mhm.
that impulse is going to take you right off track.
Mhm.
So have faith that when you're traveling from Cali and you're going east to New York, that you will get there if you just keep going and don't let inertia or an impulse or something take you off your path.
Right. Because you will face resistance. There's
Yes.
no way to move forward without resistance. That's also like physics, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if you're in a plane, the wind is going to press against you unless you catch a jet stream. But like, you're not always going to be in a jet stream when you're on a
Yeah.
plane. Sometimes you have turbulence.
Tailwind.
Sometimes
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's kind of like in life, there will be moments of,
Right. Yeah, and then direction you head matters because if you head west, you're gonna have a headwind.
mm-hmm,
You go east, you're gonna have a tailwind. So that's why flights going one way and back round trip, one's always longer than the other
mm,
because of the wind speed and wind direction. So
mm,
we need to know, even in our paths and our
mm-hmm,
trajectories, are we
mm-hmm,
facing a headwind or a tailwind? Are we going to
mm,
need to put more effort in? Like what you said, we might underestimate the amount of effort it might take.
mm-hmm,
And I'm experiencing that right now with my weight loss
mm-hmm,
because before, when I was a personal trainer and I went from 320 pounds to 160 pounds, I lost half of me. It seemed like so much less effort than it
mm,
feels now.
mm-hmm,
I'm older.
mm-hmm,
And when they say when you hit 30, you really go downhill.
mm-hmm.
If you don't use it, you lose it. They weren't lying. But if you maintain it or build it up, then you'll be building momentum in that trajectory. It'll be easier.
Right.
You won't have that
Yeah.
decline when you hit 30.
Yeah. And then you just, like, start from where you are, right? And that's
Yeah.
where I'm proud of you
Yeah.
that you have been starting from where you
Mhm.
are, and you starting to make progress, and just
Mhm.
keep, even if it doesn't feel like you in New York yet,
Right,
just
right.
keep going,
Yes.
and you'll start to see it once you get to closer to
Mhm.
your goal. And I feel like that's a great example that you use.
Mhm.
And for me, like, as a dancer, like, I love to dance. It's a hobby of mine, and always wanted to be better and better at dance. And it's one of those things that you don't always see the progress of your improvements in your dance, because sometimes technique and um just working on certain exercises to improve certain foot positions or improve like how you're uh dancing with your partner, you don't always like experience the benefits of it right away. But it's almost like overnight you just will dance with someone and they'll be like, wow, that was such a great dance. And it's because like you've been putting in all the effort on the back end and you don't see like how much closer you're getting to the type of dancer or the technique you want to be at when you're just doing the day-to-day monotonous exercises to try to improve.
Yeah.
I think that can be applied to really anything in life.
Mhm.
It's all about like the small incremental growth to get to where you want to get. And
Even when you don't get the immediate results.
yeah.
And it reminds me of the like how in sports, like if you look at like training and performance, they train, perform.
Right.
Whereas it just reminds me of like organizational like leadership. It's like perform, train. It's like, okay, well, how well are you going to perform when it's just all performance and 10 minutes of training versus
That's
all
so
training and
real.
10 minutes of performing?
That's so real.
Yeah.
And there are some cultures like work cultures where development and training is a large part of the culture and performing is less of the culture, and
Mm.
it seems like those organizations tend to produce more. I mean, I
Yeah.
know that Google used to be, apparently they've changed the culture now, but it used to be
Mm.
like a play space, and like
Yeah.
when they were planned they were able to innovate and
Mhm.
create more interesting things,
Right. Like Gmail and Maps came out of
yeah,
play.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like, yeah, just finding out like what we need to do to break the pattern of thought and making
Yeah.
sure that we are like sewing into our minds and our bodies in the ways that will allow us to propel towards what it is we want versus speaking negatively about ourselves, wasting time doing things that isn't going to bring us the fruits that we want to see.
Right.
And like another thing, so this comes back to the willpower book I've been reading.
Mhm.
One of the things that was so like just light bulb for me is people, when you are like experiencing a failure of your attempt to change something,
Mhm.
when you beat yourself up for it, you actually push yourself further into regression than you
Oh,
do when
right.
you're kind to yourself and you say something good about yourself. If you make a mistake or slip up, you're not supposed to say, "Wow, what a mess up! I screwed up."
Right.
Like, I just when you do that, you
Yeah.
have to. So when you do that, your body, your brain wants to feel better, right?
Mhm.
And so a lot of times, the things that it does to feel better is the thing you don't want to do.
Right.
And so that's why it's hard to, lose weight, for example, if
Right.
someone breaks their diet because they think, well, screw it, I
Right.
messed up. I
Well,
can just,
you're reinforcing the victimhood. You're reinforcing the punishment instead
yeah,
of reinforcing being victorious and reinforcing a reward.
yeah,
So then you're gonna trigger like cortisol because now you're stressed.
right. And what
Versus,
and what the reaction to stress, the thing
mm-hmm,
that you don't want to do.
right,
So that's why
right,
it's like one of
exactly.
that was just for me very
Yeah,
profound, that it's
yeah,
like if you really want to change something, then you have to like have mercy on yourself when
mm-hmm,
you mess up, when you
right,
don't achieve the goal that you want to achieve. Because if you're hard on yourself for not achieving what you want to achieve, you just push yourself back into doing what you don't want to do.
right. And I can
Which,
relate to that right now with my weight loss journey.
see,
So
there you
completely get
go.
it. Yeah,
So it's like, how do I find ways to be kind to myself when I don't achieve the goal that I want to achieve?
yeah.
And like I've read books on self compassion before.
Mm,
That
mm-hmm,
has been really helpful. But and then in terms of like spiritualizing it, the Bible talks a lot about grace, right?
yeah,
And so it's like focusing on God's grace towards us. If we have been like not kind to others, not kind to ourselves all these years, but God still loves us so much,
mm-hmm,
and that He, would give His only Son for us, and that He would, just continue to be good to us and bless us despite our flaws, if he can have that much grace on us, then we should be able to show that much grace to other people and to ourselves. If
Right.
God loves us, then why shouldn't we be able to love ourselves? Why shouldn't we be
Yeah.
able to love other people?
Right.
You know? And so that's
Because
like a
man told us we can't.
right. And man,
Mhm.
they their standard is different. Their standard
Right.
is corrupt. Their standard is flawed.
Yeah.
And so they want to have us focusing on things that keep us enslaved
Mhm.
instead of allow us to be free and
Right.
experience this universe, this creation in its fullness.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge of being a human being, but it's
Yeah.
all about like, la resistance. Fight, 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 fight the,
Fight for all
programming.
your life.
Yes.
Western win this game. I went to WMU.
Nice.
That's the
Hey.
fight song.
Yeah, see?
Fight, fight,
Yeah,
fight with
exactly.
all your might.
Yeah. So you just got to
Yeah.
continue to resist the programming, like recognize that
As
you
I'm programmed with that fight song.
yeah, no. Yeah, well, hey, it's a good song to be programmed with. That's what I say. And mine's like hail to the victors valiant, hail
Hail,
to the conquering hero, hail,
hail,
hail
hail.
to Michigan, the leaders and the best.
Woo.
Go blue. And for me, it's been like seriously, it's been times throughout life where I just like I'm a leader, I'm the best. I'm not gonna let this stop me. So those those little programs is good sometimes to think highly
Right.
of yourself. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's important to have those like mantras to
Mhm.
push you through
Right.
when the programming is telling you like, yeah, you can't do it, you're not strong enough.
Right.
It's like no, I am strong enough. I
Yeah.
can do this. I got God on my
Yeah.
side. We're gonna be okay.
For if we
I'm
hath a
making some
will, then
progress.
we hath a way.
Yeah, and just count the progress.
Yes.
If you mess up, forgive yourself. You'll
Mhm.
be good.
Mhm.
That's kind of the message. That's
Yeah.
kind of
It's a great
the
message.
vibe. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Corey. Diamond for offering a diamond of a topic today.
Well, it's fitting. I feel like we kind of beat ourselves up a lot, and we don't count the blessings enough. So
Yes.
hopefully this will be a blessing to somebody out here.
Mhm.
And we haven't really interacted with you all
Mhm.
much this episode, but hopefully you got something away from this. And yeah, we'll be able to do it again
Yeah. So
soon.
please subscribe and comment. Let us know the lesson of your blessing that you received.
Yes. And how you've experienced the willpower.
And until next time, thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Exploiting the Explicit. Don't forget to subscribe.